Maria had always been invisible, not because she wasn't physically present, but because the world had chosen not to see her. She grew up in a neighborhood where the whispers of poverty echoed through the streets. But it wasn't just the lack of material wealth that weighed on her. It was the constant reminder that people only seem to measure worth by surface-level traits, by the clothes you wore, the color of your skin, the accent with which you spoke. In a world that idolized perfection, Maria was the antithesis of what society deemed valuable. Her skin was darker than most of her classmates, and that alone seemed to be enough for others to pass judgment. The teasing began when she was just a child, and by the time she was in middle school, it had only grown more malicious. It wasn't the poverty that hurt her most. It was the ridicule. It was the whispers behind her back, the jokes that followed her every move, the looks that told her she wasn't good enough to belong. The schoolyard felt like a battlefield, and Maria was the constant target. Her classmates would laugh at her accent, mock the food she brought for lunch, and make fun of her hand-me-down clothes. Every day she was a walking target. Her lunch smelled different from theirs, and that alone seemed to make her a curiosity. "Maria, what's that? Is that what you eat at home?" they would ask, followed by a chorus of laughter. She'd smile weakly, trying to brush it off, but inside, her heart was heavy with the sting of their words. She never understood why they cared. Why did it matter what she ate, how she spoke, or what she wore? Wasn't everyone supposed to be different? Weren't they all meant to be accepted for who they were? But the truth was clear. The world didn't see her the same way it saw others. It was as if she wasn't allowed to exist in the same space, let alone stand side by side with the rest of them. Her skin color, her food, her background, they marked her as other, and that otherness made her an easy target. It didn't help that she was introverted. Maria preferred the quiet comfort of books to the noisy chaos of school. She spent hours in the library, escaping into the pages of stories where people weren't judged for their skin or where they came from. The world she read about became her refuge, the only place she felt safe. But the real world, the one filled with judgment and ridicule, was inescapable. The bullying didn't end with the teasing. Maria's classmates began to exclude her from everything. She wasn't invited to the parties, to the hangouts, to the sleepovers. She was never considered when it came time to form teams for group work. She was always left out, as if she didn't belong. And she didn't, at least. That's what they made her believe. She wasn't one of them, no matter how hard she tried to fit in. At home things weren't much different. Her parents, who loved her fiercely, were too focused on their own struggles to see what was happening at school. They worked long hours to make sure Maria had a roof over her head and food on the table. They didn't have the luxury of worrying about how their daughter was being treated at school. Their concerns were more immediate, making ends meet, surviving. But Maria's pain was becoming more than just something she could hide from them. It was eating her alive. Her confidence was shattered. She became convinced that maybe they were right. Maybe she wasn't good enough. Maybe there was something inherently wrong with her. And for a long time, she believed it. She believed the jokes, the laughter, the exclusion. She believed the world had already decided who she was, and that was all she'd ever be. But the turning point came one day, when she realized that something deep inside her refused to accept this fate. There was a small voice inside her, weak but persistent, that refused to let her go quietly. It told her that she was worth more than the world's judgment, that she wasn't defined by their insults. It was a tiny flicker of hope, but for the first time, Maria listened. She didn't know what to do with it yet, but that little spark of defiance was enough to get her to change. She didn't know how to fight back, not with words. She had tried that before, and it only made things worse. But there was something inside her that urged her to do more. It wasn't about vengeance or shouting louder. It was about rising above it. It was about proving to herself that she could be more than they ever gave her credit for. She didn't need them to accept her. She needed to accept herself. So Maria began to work harder than ever. She poured herself into her studies, staying up late at night, reading books, doing homework, and setting goals. Every test she took, she gave everything. Every class, she paid attention with laser focus. She didn't care about the parties they threw, or the fun they had without her. She had a vision, a quiet secret vision that no one knew about. It wasn't about fitting in anymore. It was about excelling, about proving that she could be someone, even if they didn't see her. The insults didn't stop. They never really did. They just became background noise. Every comment, every sneer, every laugh at her expense, they were all just fuel for the fire inside her. Maria didn't lash out. She didn't fight back. Instead, she let their words push her further, faster. She made herself smarter, more driven. She studied for hours. She learned new skills. She developed a work ethic that no one else could match. Every day she was told she couldn't do it. Every day she did it anyway. By the time graduation came, Maria had already earned a scholarship to a top university. The same people who once laughed at her, who told her she'd never make it, now looked on in disbelief as she walked across the stage, diploma in hand. They couldn't believe it. Maria had done what they thought was impossible. She had proven them wrong. But Maria wasn't satisfied with just getting into college. No, she was determined to take that next step. In college she faced new challenges, but this time, she was ready. She had learned how to be resilient, how to keep pushing even when things got hard. Too, it wasn't easy. Being a scholarship student, in a sea of students with wealth and connections, was tough. There were times she felt out of place, but she knew she had earned her spot. She belonged there just as much as anyone else. Maria worked harder than anyone she knew. She wasn't going to let her background define her. She wasn't going to let anyone tell her she didn't belong. She went to classes, participated in discussions, networked and developed her leadership skills. By the end of her college years, she was recognized for her academic achievements, for her work ethic, and for her dedication. She wasn't the outsider anymore. She was a force to be reckoned with. After graduation, Maria landed her first real job in a prestigious company. The same people who had once doubted her now looked at her in awe. The girl who had once been the target of every joke was now their colleague, their equal. She worked tirelessly, not because she had something to prove to them, but because she had something to prove to herself. She had earned her place at that table. Years went by, and Maria's career blossomed. She became a leader in her field, respected and admired for her talent and determination. And one day, as she stood in front of a crowd, sharing her journey, Maria realized something. She had won. She had turned every humiliating moment into fuel for her success. She had risen from the ashes of their ridicule and emerged stronger than anyone could have imagined. She stood there on that stage, looking out at the audience, knowing that this was the moment she had worked for. She wasn't there to prove anything to anyone. She had already proven everything to herself. And as the applause echoed around her, Maria knew the truth. She was worthy. She had always been worthy. Maria had been humiliated. She had been broken. But now, she was whole, stronger than ever. And the world had finally seen her for who she truly was. Not just a survivor, but a victor.